It's a program of Jewish information, inspiration, motivation, and transformation. Here on the Gavriel Sanders Show.
Shalom Aleichem, Moadim L'Simcha, Chevri. Welcome to a special edition of the Gavriel Sanders Show. Why a special edition? Because we have to tackle a special issue that affects everyone living in the 5 boroughs of New York and beyond. At the time of this recording, we're a day away, Mitzvah Hashem, from the release of our hostages in Gaza. How this all plays out in the bigger picture remains to be seen, but if Phase 1 of the Trump plan brings them home, that's a huge and long-awaited event. But this is also the week of Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, and Parshat Breshit. So it's fitting that we open with a 3-minute Dvar Torah with Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Goodman, Rabbi Emeritus of the Young Israel of Far Rockaway. Rabbi Goodman, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gavriel. Shalom, listeners across the planet. Here we are, we finally reached the first reading of the year, the Sidra Bereshis. That fascinating Sidra that one can spend weeks on and never go out of it. The philosophy, everything that's involved in it. I'd like to speak about one item, of course, that's what I have to do, and that is the expression Tov in the Sidra. Everything God creates, he says, Tov, Tov, Tov. Finally, when he's nearly finished, man has been created. He looks around and he says, V'hinei Tov Ma'od. Very good. Comes an amazing, amazing midrash with several different versions, but all pointing the same way. And they say, Tov, this is life. Ma'od, very, that's death. Tov, this is the angel of good. Ma'od, this is the Malach HaMaves. All kinds of expressions that seem to say that very good is no good. Very, very strange midrash. And of course, many Sfarim have written about this and did various analyses on it. Based on a thought that I once saw in the Dubna Maggid's Sefer, I realized that there's a very simple pshat to this. Everything in the world was created Tov, good. And every item has its maximums. Every lion has a maximum that he can accomplish. Every elephant, every fish. Every creature in the world has a maximum. The human being has no maximums. The human being walks on earth, and yet he flies off into space. He gets into a submarine, and he's in the bottom of the ocean. He's unlimited. What he can do with his powers. He can create magnificent machinery that makes everybody happy and eases their burdens and makes life wonderful. And he can create machinery of destruction that wipes out half the earth, or the whole earth. Chas v'shalom. Ma'od. Our goal in life is to use the ma'od power, the very power, the right way. If we don't do it the right way, it is indeed maves, it is the malach ha-maves. We stand on the brink of an age where theoretically the whole world could be destroyed with poison gases and all kinds of bombs of destruction. So the Torah says to us, love God with your heart and your whole life, and with all of your ma'od. Use your ma'od wisely. Use your power of excess properly. You have a lot of energy. Channel it into the right direction. Do good with it. Go out. Use your energy. Always in the right way. Learn Torah. Do chesed. Use your ma'od. Never use your ma'od destructively. You have an inventive mind. Make inventions that are good for mankind. Don't get involved in terrible, terrible experiments of destruction. Ma'od is a great power of the human being. We have to use it in the wisest way. Even the king is told, Kesef v'zohav lo yarbalo ma'od. Even the king who has all the pomp of his throne has to know there's a limit of ma'od in everything in life for everybody in life. Let's use our powers wisely and live the good life. Shalom.
You're tuned to the Gavriel Sanders Show, broadcasting on WNEW 102.7 FM HD3 New York and around the world on TalkLineNetwork.com.
In this edition of the Gavriel Sanders Show, most of our time will be dedicated to talking about local New York City politics, but not in the way that you might think. I'm sitting here with my good friend of many, many years, Mr. Richard Altabe from the Five Towns area, Far Rockaway actually to be specific, and he's been involved with many different activities for the benefit of the larger Jewish community in the years that I've known him. Richard, welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here.
I am delighted that you're here, although the issue we're talking about isn't so delightful if people don't show up and do something. But first, before we talk about that, let's talk about you. What's been your involvement over the years in the community, the larger Jewish community, and why are you doing what you're doing today?
Okay, so I've been in education for the past 40 years. I served as principal in many schools, Yeshiva Darchei Torah locally here as general studies. The last 10 years I've been in Haub. I was in the Syrian community for 10 years in between, and that's my main objective in life, is to be mechanech children. But over the years I did get involved politically, only because the nexus between politics and education is very deep and strong, especially when it comes to public school children and their rights and their services, and I've been a big advocate for that. That led me in the direction. Back in the 1990s, out here in Far Rockaway, I was elected to school board 2 terms, and that put me on the map as a political person. I never really wanted to pursue politics from the angle of serving. I felt that I could better serve the community by advocating and organizing electoral participation such that candidates for office would seek our endorsement here in Far Rockaway. We have something out here called the Far Rockaway Jewish Alliance, which regularly endorses candidates for office, and often we will interview candidates and determine which candidates are best suited for the community, and then we'll advocate for a particular candidate. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but we're always engaged and we're always involved, and we always are meeting people to make sure that the people who do run for office who successfully become elected officials make sure they understand the needs of our community. And I've been Baruch Hashem doing that for over 30 years, and it's difficult, but it's a very meaningful way to go.
The current mayoral election is getting not only national, but even international focus and attention. So why is this election different than all other elections?
Okay. Usually, when we look at electoral politics, we look for who is the best candidate of the ones running. And usually it's a choice between A and B. A is better, B is a little bit worse, and we make a selection, we determine how to go. In the end of the day, even if we lose an election or we get the person we don't necessarily want, it's not cataclysmic, it's not existential. We move on to the next election. But in this particular election, this is our existence at stake. I cannot say it any more in stronger language. It's our existence because the election of this individual, even if he only serves for 4 years, is something that's going to impact the world Jewish community. It's going to empower our enemies to believe that in a city like New York, which has so many Jews, could actually elect somebody who's this anti-Semitic and this anti-Israel, will empower our enemies to continue doing this across the country. And we could lose America, we could lose our standing. And just look at England. Look what just happened in Manchester, England, where we talk about globalizing the intifada. When there's a ramming attack, it kills Jews on Yom Kippur. That's globalizing intifada in England. And we could quickly become just as dangerous of a place as England or France if we don't stop this from happening. So it's existential.
So how do we stop it?
We have to focus, unite, and vote. Now, let me explain to you what that means. In a normal mayoral election, let's go back 4 years to 2021. In 2021, the totality of the Orthodox Jewish vote in New York City was around 30,000, 40,000 maybe.
That's all?
That's it. The total number, before we went on this big registration drive that's happening in all the communities, of firm registered voters is 200,000. Okay? 200,000 votes united behind a single candidate changes the dynamic of this election. And the polls that you're reading do not reflect us, do not reflect the Orthodox community, because we've been a non-entity in elections for a long, long time. They look at us as a tiny, tiny minority of people who make a blip of difference in an election. In this election, if we would unite the entire Orthodox Jewish community behind a candidate and all show up and vote, and include all the new registered voters, which we are saying that's probably close to 50,000 new registered voters from what I'm hearing from Flatbush, particularly in the Syrian community, which did an incredible job. I give credit to Josh Melman in the Flatbush Jewish community and to the Syrian community led by Sammy Sutton, the senator, and all the people out there who've done an amazing job of registering people. Places like Magen David Yeshiva, which required voter registration in order to register for school, and places like the Dome, Bashar Etzion in Brooklyn, that said you cannot buy seats for Yom Kippur unless you were registered to vote. These are things that are going to change the dynamic of this election in ways that the people who take polls do not understand. Okay, so unfortunately, we just keep reading media report after media report as if that Mamdani is a done deal. That Mamdani is going to win because he's getting 45% of the vote in the polls, and Cuomo's only around 30%, and Curtis Lee was at 15%, and that's how it's going to be, as if the election already happened, without understanding the dynamic of what could happen if we actually united behind one candidate.
So we, the Jewish community, could basically be the dark horse, the sleeping candidate of voting in this case, yeah?
Correct. They're underestimating turnout. Let me just give you a numbers thing. I'll just do some math with everybody, if that's okay. So Zohar Mamdani is not going to get more than 600,000 votes in this election, because that's the total number of people who voted for him last time. I don't see that he convinced anybody else other than his base and those very left-wing leaning Democrats who, let's say, voted for a guy like Brad Lander, those types. If you took those votes plus Brad Lander's votes in one totality, it's 600,000 votes. That is his cap. Okay? So if the totality of number of votes in the mayoral election is 4 years ago, where 1.2 million people voted in New York City, then yeah, he's winning. But if 1.5 million people vote or 2 million people vote, and the vote goes united in one direction, we have this. It's a winnable election. People don't realize that because they're acting as if it's done. And what frustrates me a lot, just to hearing people from our community talk, people talking about their home values, selling their house, moving to Israel, which, by the way, moving to Israel is a beautiful thing. But the amount of effort and energy it's going to take to sell your house and move to Israel is way more than the amount of effort it would take to actually go vote. And especially when we have so many ways that we can vote today. You have mail-in ballots, which means you can now request until about, I think, October 25th, you can go to a singular email address, they will mail you a ballot, and you fill it out. You don't have to go to the polls, you don't have to stand in line. And if you have children who are registered in New York City, and they're not around, let's say they're in college or they're away in Israel, and you want to get them to vote, get the mail-in ballot, get them to fill it out, mail it in. They do not have to be here on November 4th in order to vote. And we would amplify our votes, double and triple what we've normally gotten if we would just do that. Then there's early voting. Early voting, that was a COVID thing that they started. About 10 days before Election Day, they will start early voting in certain areas in every neighborhood. And the early voting allows you to go vote. Again, no lines, quick, easy, in, out, done. And then, of course, there's Election Day. So if we can't figure out how to get ourselves off our seats to go do this, then it's on us that this happened.
Wow. So then the potential of our single voting block is somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 individuals. You've been talking to a lot of different people about this initiative. What kinds of reactions have you been getting?
There's the sense of yayush. Come on, this is it. If Curtis Lewa stays in this election, there's no way anybody else is going to win because the vote's going to be split three ways. We're not even going to unify the vote between the two candidates, whether it's Andrew Cuomo or Curtis Lewa, and we're going to just waste away, and it's going to happen, and it's inevitable, and so why should I bother? That's very frustrating to hear. When you talk it through with somebody for more than 5 seconds, they go, yeah, I really should vote. Yeah, you really should vote because you can change this election. Do not believe the media and even our own, not to be annoying, but the Jewish media is not being helpful because they're looking for clicks rather than actually energizing the community to actually do something constructive to win. Somebody yesterday called me optimistic. Oh, Altabe, you're being optimistic. I don't think I'm being optimistic. I'm being realistic. If we don't do what we can to make this happen, it's on us. It's on us. And if you want me to be depressed, and if the end result happens and November 5th, Zoran Mamdani is our mayor, we'll deal with that then. But I refuse to be depressed today when I know I could do something about it, and neither should you. Not any single person listening to the show should sit back and say, what could we do? What do you mean, what could we do? Go vote. Make sure you vote. Your wife votes. Your husband votes. Your child votes. Your neighbors vote. Everybody that you know votes. I met 2 young ladies walking Reed's Lane yesterday, and I said, are you registered to vote? Yes. Are you voting? One says, well, I'm in seminary in Lakewood. And the other one says, I'm going back to Israel. I said, vote before you go back. Oh, I could do that? Yeah, you could do that. So that's been my frustration.
Wow. So anybody listening right now should definitely deputize themselves to be an influencer in their, what we call dalaramos, right? Their particular sphere of influence with friends, family, coworkers, etc.
I just want to see people vote, and I don't understand why everybody doesn't take that same responsibility on themselves to make sure their network of people are all voting. We all have WhatsApp chats, we all have statuses, we all have ways that we communicate, multiple ways that we communicate. Every single conversation between now and Election Day should be, did you get a mail-in ballot? Did you vote? Did you get your kids to vote? Did you get your friends to vote? Did you get your neighbors to vote? Are you voting? Simple. Now talk about who.
All right, let's talk about who's the best candidate.
Okay, so this is where it gets complicated, and this is where I'm going to get a little religious, because there's no way this happened by itself. This is a major league test from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us, okay, because we're faced with a situation where none of the candidates really fit us. The one that was the best fit for us was Eric Adams, because he was somebody who really tirelessly advocated for our people for the last, especially since October 7th. But unfortunately, he was nowhere in the polls, and he had his own difficulties legally. And thankfully, he did the right thing for the city, and he dropped out. So he was our guy, but he dropped out. He didn't have the financial backing. He didn't have the political backing. He was under investigation. Whether it's fair or not fair, it's not for me to litigate. That's not my issue. But the other three candidates, the two besides Zohar Mamdani, are not people we love. So it's a test, okay? Andrew Cuomo was somebody who really hurt this Jewish community 5 years ago. I'll talk about Far Rockaway, but I'm sure other neighborhoods will agree. 5 years ago, we were in the middle of COVID. Andrew Cuomo was our governor. He was taking a strong leadership role in terms of beating COVID. He had his daily TV shows, which we all are addicted to, watching, and the numbers, and he had the statistics, and he had all the scientists. And it sounded good until around Rosh Hashanah of 5 years ago, if you remember, Rosh Hashanah 5 years ago. We were all able to go back to shul, and then about a week after Rosh Hashanah, there was a spike in COVID in all our neighborhoods, which upset the governor greatly, because, wait a minute, all these guys went to shul, and now there's a spike in COVID, so I'm going to do something. So his action then was to shut down our shuls and our yeshivas Erev Sukkos. And he made a rule that you couldn't have more than 10 people gathered in a place. I remember it was Hoshana Rabbah, and I had 15 people in my sukkah. I go, okay, we're violating the law because there's 15 people in the sukkah. It was very upsetting. He based it on numbers, and he targeted the Orthodox Jewish zip codes. And so a place like Far Rockaway that had, I think at the time, let's say a 2.5% infection rate, was not that much different than other parts of Queens, but we were targeted to close, other places were not. Now, again, he apologized, Kippur, which was beautiful. He was doing tshuva for the fact that he did this. But then he qualified his apology and said, yes, I would have done it again. Maybe I wasn't sensitive. Okay. More than that, we're not going to get from the guy. So do we love him? No, we don't love him. Is he a strong leader? Yes. Is he a competent leader? Yes. Does he have the managerial skills to run a city like New York City? Yes. People have to understand, New York City has 250,000 employees. There are 7 or 8 divisions, the sanitation, the police, the fire. Each of those divisions has a person in charge, and the mayor has to run and be overseeing all of those divisions. Somebody who's doing that has to have management skills. Okay? Neither of the other two candidates have the management skills to do that. Donnie is a 33-year-old kid who just got to college and basically ran some protests, became an assemblyman. From my people in the assembly, they tell me he barely showed up. The only bill he has going on the assembly is one that is basically anti-Israel. That's his bill. So that's his agenda, and that's his platform, is anti-Israel. And that, unfortunately, might be what's attracting those 600,000 people to go like him, because there is a rise in anti-Semitism, unfortunately. But forgetting that, he has zero management experience. And Curtis Lewa, what did he run in life? He's a nice guy. He helped us. I remember going to shul in the 70s and the 80s, and he had his guardian angels guarding the shuls in the time where there was anti-Semitism previously. He was great during the Crown Heights riots. He was out there. He's a great guy. He has great ideas. Management? None. So how's he competent to be a mayor? Also, by the way, he has said some very damaging statements about from people and about people who learn Torah and what Orthodox Jewish lifestyle is like. And he has really not apologized for those statements either. So he's no great friend. He's Curtis Lewa. He's a guy. He's good. Maybe he should get a job in somebody's administration, but he is not a mayor who's going to run a city like our city. So the only candidate that works for us, unfortunately, or fortunately, is Andrew Cuomo. And that means we have to focus and put aside what's bothering us, put aside how we feel, put aside the fact that we think he might be a bit of a Baal Gaiva, he might be somebody who's so full of himself that he doesn't come down to earth and really actually engage in dialogue the way we would like. So what? He will run the city in a very strong way. He will make sure all the agencies run. His politics may not be what we like. He's a liberal. Most of us are not. But he's a strong leader, and that's what this city needs right now, a strong leader who's committed to help the Jewish community. He's committed to fight anti-Semitism. He's committed to support the state of Israel. He's committed to having a strong police department, which we didn't even get to. Defund the police is an idea that he's outright against, okay, and he's going to make sure that there's police protection. He's going to make sure the police are strong, and we need somebody to make the trains run on time. That's what being a mayor is.
And I don't think people have thought through who Mamdani might appoint, since he doesn't have the management skills to do the work of the management.
Okay? His plan is to get into office and to do what he can to fulfill his agenda, which largely is an anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel agenda. And when he talks out both sides of his mouth on those issues, we have to understand that as a Muslim, he's fulfilling the idea of taqiyya, okay? And taqiyya, which we know is not blowing a shofar, taqiyya. Taqiyya is a legitimate way of expressing one's beliefs by making sure that you convince everybody that you're all good and nice, and then doing what you want in the end, okay? And that's been something that we've seen from our Arab neighbors for many years. If you just look in his book of what he's said and what he's spoken about, you'll see time after time he's a huge danger. And I'm going to put aside the Jewish thing for a second because I don't think we're focused on the other parts. This is a guy who just came out against gifted and talented education. So I don't understand how the immigrant communities of this city, forget us, we sent to yeshiva, but the immigrant communities of this city have always utilized gifted and talented programs to rise out of their state of poverty to higher levels. Even Mamdani himself went to Bronx High School of Science. So you're going to say, I'm against gifted and talented education because it's racist? Really? I don't think that the typical immigrant or African American or Hispanic believes that's not racist. This is a way to move yourself up out of poverty. So that's ticking people off. This is a guy who came out and said, I'm legalizing prostitution. Seriously? We don't have enough problems of crime in New York City? You're going to do that? How's that going to affect us? What that's going to cause? What the streets are going to look like? How that's going to damage our children, right? And it's not just a Jewish issue. Most people in New York City are not looking for that. So we have to just keep hammering on. Lack of experience, crazy ideas. His ideas about socialism are nuts. He's going to have free busing. Who's paying for that? We are? He's going to have free supermarkets. Who's paying for that? We are. And did that work in other countries that tried? Is Venezuela an example of socialism that worked? No. So the Democratic Party is in huge trouble because if that's their new face, I don't know. But we are in trouble if this guy gets anywhere past his 600,000 votes. And we can stop it. That's the point I'm trying to make. We can stop it. Yes, Andrew Cuomo has his faults. But he's the guy we have to unify around. He's the guy we have to put our votes together for. And thankfully, without much effort, I was able to get all of the communities that I could on one page. So we have now a unified letter that went out representing all 5 boroughs of New York, Orthodox communities in Staten Island, in Queens, Far Rockaway, Crown Heights, Riverdale, Manhattan. And they get all the 5 boroughs in Brooklyn, okay, Syrian community, all pushing and saying Andrew Cuomo is our guy. So if we could just follow that all the way through and we could get our Hasidic friends to join us, which they're in discussions to do that, I think we could really do this. So let's do it.
And have you had any direct dealings with the Hasidic community, which traditionally has had some weighted influence with these types of elections?
Again, not to comment on things that are in the middle of being discussed, but yes, I've been in discussions. I do believe that Borough Park ultimately will come on board. That's a nice chunk of Hasidim. I think that they're talking that way. Williamsburg has its own cheshbonos, so I'm not going to fall into the are they going to do or not going to do it. I think that we'd go like this. If we all get together, push very hard, and push our numbers so that the polls actually start to move a little bit, then Williamsburg will follow. Because Williamsburg is not going to commit just yet on anybody until they see it at the end. They might not say anything until 2 weeks before the election.
At the time of this recording, we're still ahead of the release of the captives. But let's say it all gets done kedas v'kedin. Then what? What do you see on the other side of all of this as far as the still percolating anti-Semitism across the country?
It's very clear. Here we were for the last week. All the nations of the Arab world got together and said, let's get this done already. Hamas is falling in line finally, on some level. Again, you can't really trust them, but on some level, they're falling in line. All the nations of the world are on board. All the nations of the world. And what's the anti-Israel crowd doing? Still screaming in the streets. Don't they want a ceasefire? If the people who did the campus protests, the protests in New York City every minute, if they would get up and have a protest, we want a ceasefire now, I would have some respect, right? Because, okay, we want a ceasefire, you want a ceasefire, we're on the same page. We all want a ceasefire. But if you're screaming in the streets again, from the river to the sea, and free Palestine, you're not about a ceasefire. You're about the destruction of Israel. And just to go back to Mamdani 1 second, just to say this last point on him, his view on Israel is really scary. Because when they ask him, are you pro-Israel? He says, of course I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro-Israel, but I don't believe in a particularism in Israel, meaning I don't believe that it should be a Jewish state. I believe that I'm a universalist. I believe it should be a country for everybody. It shouldn't be just a Jewish state. So you mean all the other countries in the world, Ireland, which is a Catholic state, and Spain is a Catholic state, and all the Arab countries that are Muslim states. They could be, but the one little strip of land that's the size of New Jersey that's been home to the Jewish people for thousands of years can't be a Jewish state, means you want to eradicate and erase the Jewish people. That's the bottom line. And he could go to shuls, he could speak to the liberal Jews all he wants and show up with Jerry Nadler and make himself look Jewish. It's not going to work because this guy is out for the eradication of the Jewish people.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the word from one who knows it well. Richard Altabe, thank you so much for being with us today. An extended interview to deal with a really critical issue. So you've heard the word, you know what to do. So let's get out and let's do it. Influence your circle of influence, and let's take care of this, because it can be done.
No, we got this. Just tell them we got this. It's doable. Stop listening to the media. Stop believing Jewish media even, and just do what you got to do and make this happen. You have the power to change this dynamic. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. It's the hishtadlus that we need to do. We daven Yom Kippur. Hashem definitely heard us. The hostages are being released. That's a nice sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking us with favor because all those decisions are in the hands of Hashem. This also is in the hands of Hashem. He just wants us to unify and do our hishtadlus. Go and do it, and don't sit back.
Thanks again for being with us today on the Gavriel Sanders Show. Kol Tuv, Moadim L'Simcha.
This is Susie Fishbein from Kosher by Design, and you are listening to Gavriel.
I have a quick PS to our conversation. Besides what you've heard today, there's one other thing you can do. Get a copy of this interview, send it to at least 10 people, and ask them to do the same. Every Jew in Greater New York needs to hear this and act on the wise counsel that you've heard today. Email me at gavrielradio@gmail.com, and I'll send you the audio file. Don't wait. Do it now. Our thanks today to executive producer Zeb Brenner of the Talkline Network, to Erin Michelle for her voiceover talent, and to Audionautics for our intro-outro music. Take what you've heard today and go make the difference only you can. Till next week, Kol Tuv.
This program showcases people, organizations, and opportunities for making a difference. Tune in next week for another freshly baked edition of The Gavriel Sanders Show. You can reach Gavriel at gavrielradio@gmail.com. That's GAVRIEL radio@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.